According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way that a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies in.
Nope, this just isn't true. Apparently, it was just made up by some French dude. Just because you make great cheese and you got invaded by the Nazis doesn't mean you can just make up bee fibs. But regardless of this lie, we do really love bees. Our food. Our movies. Our celebrities. We all love bees. And rightly so. Bees help pollinate over 70% of the world's fruit, seeds and nuts, which also includes all the cotton we use to make our clothes. But I have some bad news. Bee populations around the world are declining because of big bad humans. And unless we want to live in a dystopian future devoid from bananas and peanut butter honey sandwiches, then we have two options. Either you can start running around rubbing the genitals of flowers together, or you can build a bee hotel. That way, you'll give the bees in your area a place to rest and breed, so they can do all the hard work molesting. Alrighty, before we get into the building process, I just wanted to share the history of the bee. The bee first originated as part of the Phoenician alphabet more than 3,000 years ago in 1000 BC. At that time, the letter was called Beth and looked a little bit different, but it made the sound of a bee and was second in the alphabet. The letter is also an amazing flying insect that is closely related to ants and wasps. They are best known for their important role as pollinators. Bees eat nectar and pollen from flowers, which they then turn into honey to feed their young. They travel around to thousands of flowers each day collecting pollen, and they do this by sticking it to their hairy bodies, and in turn, they pollinate the flowers they rub up against. This kind of works in a similar way to when you're wearing fuzzy tracksuits and you're eating chips, and then the next day at uni you find some chip crumbs and you eat them.
Can I have my baby back now, please?
I decided to head down to my local creek because I knew there was a little hive of Australian native stingless bees, and I wanted to see them in action. Oh, forgot my hat. There are thousands of them in this hive, and it is amazing watching how organised and careful they are. Well, except this guy. And they all have different roles. Some of them are responsible for guarding the hive, and others fly around and gather pollen in the area until they are covered in it. And they are really easy to spot, as when they return they are brightly covered and really bad flyers. And I wasn't the only one watching these bad flyers very, very closely. Also, when I was filming the bees, I noticed something very strange about the creek. As I got closer, I realised it was white, and there were milk bottles everywhere. And I'm not sure if this is just a coincidence, but if it isn't, who pours milk into a creek? Why do you have that much milk? Just a very, very strange scenario. But yeah, you have probably heard that bees are dying, mainly because I said it at the start of this video. But when you think of bees, you usually think of these big fumbling idiots that can barely fly straight. And I was originally planning to make a hive for them in this video. But it turns out when people talk about bee populations declining, they aren't really talking about these guys. Of the 1,700 species in Australia, the majority are not social bees that live in big hives like the western honeybee, but are actually solitary bees, very, very lonely bees. And these wild bees are in danger. Their habitat is constantly being destroyed because we keep pouring milk in their creeks, using pesticides, and on top of that, they have to compete with the much-loved domesticated honeybees that we put everywhere to help pollinate fruit trees. And I did a bit more research into solitary bees, and it turns out they are the bachelors of the bee world. You have the leafcutter bee, the resin bee, the blue-banded bee, the carpenter bee, and my favourite, the very sexy teddy bear bee. And you can't tie these bachelor bees down. They fly around eating whatever they want and sleeping with whoever they want. Then, whenever they are exhausted from all their eating and shagging, they find a nice little tunnel, such as a rolled up leaf or a crack in a brick, and they lay their eggs. Then, they quickly disappear before they have to pay child support. And we never hear about these solitary bees, which make up the majority of all bee species. All we ever hear about are their beautiful social bee cousins, with their queens having group orgies all day while seducing us humans with their sexy honey, which we then use to seduce other humans. But if you actually compare the honeybees to the lesser-known solitary bees, it turns out solitary bees are 20 times better at pollinating plants than the social bees. So, that is why I've decided to build a hotel for the underrated solitary bees. They really deserve some support. And I'm going to make this the Burj Khalifa of hotels. So impressive and eye-catching that all the bees in the area will want to stay in it. And then, when it becomes popular enough, I can start charging an entrance fee and make a fortune. And it turns out solitary bees aren't very demanding. All they really need in their hotels are some holes, a bit like those Japanese pod hotels. So, if you don't want to go to much effort, you could just drill holes in everything around your yard, like this dead tree here. And the bees would benefit from it and have a place to stay. But this isn't the best thing to do, as the holes can get clogged up after time, and then you have to pay for housekeeping to clean up all the mess. So, for my bee hotel, the plan is to cut some pieces of wood into the shape of hexagons, the same shape that honeybees naturally make when creating hives, so hopefully the honeybees will see it and get super jealous. Then I will stuff the hexagon full of bamboo sticks around 10 centimeters long. And these bamboo sticks are great because you can empty all of them and the bee gunk and reuse the sticks at the end of every season. Alright, I'm not the best woodworker, but I'm going to cut the wood at 7 centimeters long at an angle of 30 degrees. Now hopefully, when I put them together I get a hexagon. And this is the practice one I made to see if I was even capable of creating a hexagon. And these are actually a lot of fun. You can make all kinds of things. For the more hardcore bees, you can make the symbol of DEFCON. For the conspiracy bees, or for the lazy bees, you can make an elevator. But back to it. So, I'm making these hexagons out of fence palings because I thought they would be durable, and my neighbours left heaps of them on my side of the fence. So now I have my pieces, I'm going to glue them all together. And I was going to use nails, but then I decided I should use liquid nails. But then I don't have the gun attachment for it, but I decided to use it anyway. And then I just decided to use my fingers to apply this toxic glue. So let's just have a read of the back of the liquid nails packet. Can cause severe skin damage. Can cause severe skin damage and eye damage. May cause respiratory irritation. If on skin, take off immediately. Rinse skin with water, shower. Continue to wash skin until glue is removed. If in eyes, rinse cautiously with water for several minutes. Immediately call a doctor or other medical personnel. Do not let dry on skin. So I'm just going to leave the glue to dry for 24 hours. And the glue on my hands is finally dry, so I guess it's time to unwrap our hexagons. And they look pretty good. And then I'm just going to sand them down, and now it's time for my colour scheme. And I'm just picking the palette of the European honeybee to make it seem like I'm mocking them. And hopefully I can get some bee fights happening. And you can tell you have picked the right colours when the person serving you at Bunnings can guess you're painting a bee just from the colours you've picked. Now I'm just going to give them a paint. And I have gone with the strategy of painting them as quickly as possible so I don't realise I've done a bad job. And they're looking pretty good, just going to leave them to dry. So I'm going to pick a spot in my yard that is kind of near flowers, and it gets a little sun, and is undercover at the same time. And I decided to place them in this cubby house that was built for humans, but has never actually been used, as soon as we built it, it was claimed by every spider in my neighbourhood. And then I'm just going to attach them to the wall and fill them up with bamboo. And I assumed that bamboo came pre-hollowed. I did not think I would have to do it myself. I really have to change bamboo suppliers. Then I'm just going to add some other things that all of us enjoy, including bees, like some wooden dowels with holes in them and some flowers. And I'm very happy with how they look. Usually when I make stuff it looks like crap, but this is probably the first thing I've actually made that I'm proud of. Actually, besides my steel-toed Crocs. Look, I already have my first flying customers. Come on, in you go. So there we go. It's open for business. I'll have to check back in a couple of months to see if we get any customers. But in the meantime, I'm going to have a word with that bloke.
Hey, mate, you can stop it with the rubbing of the flowers now. I put in a bee hotel.
Solitary bees are dormant in winter,
Oh, what?
so I'm going to be here all year long.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, make sure to subscribe and check out my other stuff.